that the sanctuary movement stands on the most solid biblical basis, the most solid humanistic, if you will, atheistic humanistic basis, and certainly within the framework of what made this country the great nation it is and it was, and that we are threatened with losing perhaps because simply we are thinking in terms of the morrow rather than 10 years. With a, like someone told me last night, I think with a microscope, you like to think with a telescope.
You would prefer then, strike that, you haven't said prefer, you would, however, move beyond the protest that would lead to, in our majoritarian nation, a change of the laws, and you would go beyond that and do violence to the laws? I
certainly would. If I were, let me delimit very carefully. Let me delimit very carefully what I would do. If I were, had a Salvadorian family in my home, and I knew that the migration authorities were going to come after them, and they were going to send them back to Salvador, and I know that they were going to be killed, that mother, that father, and those two children, I would break the law and have them live with me and lie about it. I would. I have done it. I've done it in Argentina. When my kids woke up in the morning, Dick, they didn't know who was living in the house because those people were on the way of getting on this underground, or as it were, air railroad to save those thousands of lives.
Do you see any indication that we won't need to do that in this country?
Yes, I think that, well, I would hope so. I think that I don't think the American people will stand if we really begin to send these people back to death squads, and we in the human rights community can document that we're sending them back, as we have in the past, to death. I don't think the American people will put up with this. But I think there have to be some sacrifices made. And there are those individuals who feel called upon, and not because they're heroes, but because they can't sleep at night.
Talking about not sleeping at night, one needn't turn to Latin America.
That's true.
You yourself have said that we look in this country at
in
the homeless.
In this city.
In the city in which we sit, and in probably most of the major cities in which this program will eventually be seen. No one of them is without the problem that we have here at some scale or another, which led me, before I came here today, to think back to Luke, if I may.
Please.
For it is easier for a camel to go through a needle's eye than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. That has to do, obviously, with the degree to which we provide for our own unfortunate people. And I wonder whether that passage from Luke is something that you can subscribe to.
I can subscribe to it. I'm not particularly happy with it because I think it sort of lends itself to the fact that an individual, ipso facto, because he's rather comfortable with his money, can't get into the kingdom of heaven, and a poor man, ipso facto, can. I think that it's much more demanding than that. As I understand it, Luke, of course, was a Jew, as was Jesus. Jesus lived, died, and lived his entire, was born as a Jew, so were all the apostles. But they did, this is called a midrashic style of writing, which means a metaphoric style of writing. Not
treated
every
metaphorically.
Poor, okay, but I
not
think
about every poor person,
yeah.
Nor every rich man.
No, but I
what
think
about this nation?
Our nation, I believe, has to take it very, very seriously, in the sense that we have been living off the wealth of the third world for decades. We are hated by some 500 million Latin Americans for that. We are perceived as living within democracy, but exporting support to fascist regimes. I think to a very great extent, if you look at the United States' involvement with Central America and South America, this will be true. I'm not going to apologize for it. I feel horrible about it. I feel guilty about it. It does not fill me with pride as an American. And I will therefore do everything in my power to right that within the democratic process, of course, and with the due process of law. because this is a major systematic issue of methodology and policy.
And when we
there are forums for that.
And when we come to the homeless in our own country again, there, what kind of action do you see to be taken by a congregation?
Well, first of all, I think that there's something very sick in the society, almost an obscenity. I think that the fact that there are so many homeless in the United States of America is obscenity. It's not a sin, it's worse than that, it's an obscenity. There is no possible reason that's acceptable why there are so many homeless. There is no possible reason to explain away the hungry in the United States of America. This is your fault, this is my fault, this is everybody's fault that is watching this program or listening to it. And we have the wherewithal to stop this, to do away with it, and to take the proper action on the federal level, on the state level, on the city level, on the township level, and on the private sector level, and every synagogue and every church, as well as every mosque, or as well as every Masonic temple, or Elks, or Moose Club, or whatever the fraternal organization is, or every human being. I mean, this can be stopped. It must be stopped if we want to avoid what I believe is going to happen in 10 years. Because if these people are so angry, and we're talking about 40 or 50 million Americans who don't have enough to eat and who have not very good working conditions, to say the least, if they get the wrong leader, or for them the right leader, God help us in 5 or 10 years.
That's very clear to you, isn't it, what you've just said?
Very.
Why isn't it to many other leaders of congregations?
Because I don't think they're interested in looking at it. I think, you see, people, it has a lot to do with what your life experience has been like, Dick. Half of my life I lived abroad. I've seen the glorious wealth of Buenos Aires go up in flames, you know. I've seen the Park Avenues burned out. We think it's impossible. We're terribly naive, frightfully naive, and the clock is ticking quite quickly. Not because I'm a revolutionary, not because I'm a pinky, not because I'm a fellow traveler, but because this is what the real message of Judaism is about. Equality, the possibility of living, and let live, but not only willing and let live, helping to live. You see, live and let live is fine. That's a laissez-faire attitude that doesn't require any exigencies upon my part. It's not enough to live and let live. I want to live and help you to live, because perhaps you need my help. And I think if we begin to understand that, we will recapture some of the greatness and some of the beauty of the glorious ideas that made our country, not only ideas, but the glorious actions that made our country, at one time, the envy of the world. We're not that now. Some people may think that we walk tall and have found our self-esteem. Just travel enough around the world, I would suggest. You'll see that it's not so.
Rabbi Meyer, I so much appreciate your coming here today. The message is obviously a very important one. I want to continue this discussion and continue this theme, and you've taught me not to use the phrase that I began with. Thank you again very much.